For us, what really is most important to our client is having a partner who understands that business side and who not just come in like it's easy. Anybody can come in and find a venue. Anyone can call up a speakers bureau, right? And find a list of speakers. But what it really takes it to the next level is understanding the key message that the event has to deliver to their attendees and figuring out which keynote speaker with their background, what they can talk about to really anchor those key messages.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Keynote Curators podcast. I am Seth Dechtman, your Keynote Curator, and I am excited to bring in our next guest, Huong Nguyen. Huong, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, how's it going, everybody? Thank you so much for having me, Seth.
Huong, you're very welcome. Share with our guests, our listeners, our faithful public, where this podcast finds you today.
You mean where I'm located?
Yes, that would be a fancy way to say, where are you right now in the world?
I am in San Jose, California. If you do not know where that is, it's basically the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. And I'm always surprised because I never think people know where that is. But every time I say it, they go, oh, yeah, I do know. Okay, that's good. But yes, San Jose, California.
The Sunshine State, Sunshine State's Florida, the Golden State.
Yes.
You know, I was introduced to you by another colleague in the industry, and I'm just thrilled to have you. You know, Shiloh, which I've learned in Hebrew means peace, a way to say peace in Hebrew,
Yes.
is kind of a core virtue of Shiloh Events, of which you're the founder, where from what I understand, it's about bringing peace of mind to every client with whom you work with, whether it's event production, management services, any kind of solutions that they're looking for your expertise on. And I got connected through a mutual colleague, Julius Solaris, who we both know is a great influencer. He's a great partner in connecting people, and he's the founder of Bold Push. You, Huong, have been dedicated to the event industry for more than 15 years. You're now the CEO and founder, as mentioned, of Shiloh Events. And, you know, not only do you deal with all things events, but you really specialize in managing large scale corporate events for global brands around the globe. And I do mean around the globe. For example, Microsoft, TEDx, and Zoom. As I've mentioned now, and I'm repeating myself, I'm excited to have you here today to hear about your thoughts about the industry, what's on the horizon for meeting professionals. And those are most of our listeners today, Huong. They're meeting professionals. We do have all industries and all business types coming in to gain insights, gain access to thought leadership on how we can expand our capacities, both in the business and professional life. Mm-hmm. I'm looking forward to your insights and your perspectives. And I just kind of want to get right into the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
With Shiloh Events, as there are other speaker providers, the Keynote Curator stands out for several reasons. What is it about Shiloh Events in producing these memorable experiences that enhance brand awareness, customer and employee engagement, even loyalty? How do you distinguish yourself?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to just thank you for having me. And also I want to acknowledge the meeting planners that are listening in right now and just tell them that they're doing a really good job, kick-ass job in the events industry because it is a tough industry to be in. You have to have passion to really endure the stress that really overcomes you and overwhelms you in the heat of the planning, in the moment. But then at the very end, it is very rewarding. But the entire process from start to end can be really stressful. And so going back to what you said about the name of Shiloh and how it means peace, to extend that even more, it means a place of peace. So when clients hire us, our goal and truly our virtue, like you said, our core value is to deliver peace to a stressful industry, one event at a time. So when clients hire us, our goal is to be an extension of their team. We really come on and we take on the logistics, but also the strategy at times if they have the budget for it. We shoulder the burdens to alleviate, them to be able to focus on things that are more important to them. You go through your day, right? And you have your whole checklist and you get distracted, you get bombarded, and you feel anxiety and stress. And in that moment, you wish you could have like another you, a duplicate, a clone, right? Or somebody that you can trust to like offload some of the action items that you can't do yourself. That's what makes us stand out is that we come alongside our clients and as an extension of their team so that we can be there for them as a trusted partner, as a collaborator, as like, in alignment, in lockstep with them and their vision, their goals to ensure that they can, get from point A to point Z to have success and to have that ROI in their event because these events can cost a lot of money, right? And so another way that we stand out is ensuring that they get to the point of success the most cost efficient and the most effective manner possible.
I mean, wow, there's a lot to unpack there, but the bottom line is that when you say A to Z, it really is that for a meeting planner. And I just want to highlight or underscore a couple of things or place in
Mhm.
bold and italics, an extension of your client.
That's
Because
right.
how often is it, as you said, the meeting planners are kicking ass and we got to keep doing that,
Right.
that when you're at the event and it's go to time or it's planning time, even
Yeah.
weeks, months out, make a little bit of a joke with meeting planners. You're so woven into your client's world that you should
Yeah.
actually have a desk at their headquarters
Oh, yeah.
because
For
because
sure.
you're so woven into every part of their DNA.
Right, right.
And
I mean, to the point where we have to sign an NDA to be able to get access to the behind the scene information about their products. And a lot of times our clients are small in terms of the teams that they have to operate with. Sometimes they only have one person, which is them that they're doing it, and then like maybe a support and admin. And then other times they'll have maybe like 2 to 3 team members. And if you're planning a large user conference or heck, like even a small conference of like 200 people, there's still so many different event elements that you have to work through. And there's two sides to events. There's the business side where you really have to figure out what your product is for the event, your content, your messaging, your marketing, your attendees, the demographics, the personas, and the tracks that you have to create for them and really like connect with the attendees. And then the other side of the coin is the logistics, the execution. And what we do really well is tie in the two together. And it all starts with strategy. It all starts with that vision. And then we interwoven the logistics and the ideas of like the entire experience with that vision. And so it's, for us, what really is most important to our client is having a partner who understands that business side and not just come in like it's easy. Anybody can come in and find a venue. Anyone can call up a speakers bureau, right? And find a list of speakers. But what it really takes it to the next level is understanding the key message that the event has to deliver to their attendees and figuring out which keynote speaker with their background, what they can talk about to really anchor those key messages. And so when we curate keynote speakers, yeah, we look at Speakers Bureau, but we're very, very selective on who we present to our clients. We look at the speaker's background, their previous talks. Are they going to really integrate the content and connect with the attendees on a different level? It's more than just the execution, the tactical. There has to be a strategic level to it too.
yeah, and it's all part of the design, Hung. I mean, look, like you said, you can Google and find a speaker, but what's the compelling reason, argument? How do you contextualize not only who they are and their history and their speeches that they've given, but how do you make the case for each keynote speaker where you weave them into not only the messaging and the initiative, but the culture of the organization? Maybe they're being acquired or they've just decoupled from an acquisition and they're looking for some independence. And at first blush, one speaker might not make sense. But then, as the expert, Hong, when you deal with your clients, you say, actually, let's just go a little bit deeper under the hood here. And they
Mhm.
have this experience, which isn't so obvious from their bio or that we haven't seen in any of their clips. But I know because I've worked with this speaker or this keynote curator, this is what they can deliver and how they can tailor their message, really. And
Mhm.
that's with all parts of your event design, I imagine. Like you
Yeah.
said, anybody can find a location,
Mhm.
budget could be a limiting factor, but it doesn't have to mean that it's a lesser than location, a lesser than speaker, or any of the other vendors that provide the services and goods that you need for the
Yeah,
event. Um,
absolutely.
the challenge sometimes is, like you said, you have a client that you're doing an amazing event for, whether it's a smaller one or a
Mm,
very large corporate event, and they have a clear, strong idea about how they want to deliver it, what they want to deliver. But
mhm.
then, as the Shiloh Events founder, your spidey sense comes up and says, wait a minute, great idea in concept, but to execute that, we're either going to need to 5x the budget,
Mhm.
or it's just not going to provide. Maybe even more importantly, let's say you do have 5x the budget. Is it really going to provide the type of experience that we're shooting for,
Right.
or the type of engagement that we want with the attendees? So, how do you
Yes.
thread that needle? How do you talk to your buyer? Not
Mhm.
like you're beholden to them, but they are, your client. But then, whether it's pushback or partnering up or collaborating and say,
Yes.
hey, we need to shape or trim your idea a little bit. How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people wanna buy a Mercedes on a Honda budget, right? And, they want the all the bells and whistles, but not enough resources or the funding, and we get that all the time. Our clients would be like, "Well, how much does it cost for me to do a 500 people attendee conference, user conference for 3.5 days?" And I tell them a number, and then they go, "Oh, shoot," then they get that sticker shock.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we try to give people a realistic approach where, okay, let's take a step back. And I mean, I tell them, I'm happy to give you all kinds of variations of numbers and what you can afford with this cost. It's not going to do you a service if you don't know the end goal and the call to action at the very end of that
That's
conference.
right.
And on these calls, our clients are like, oh, I want to do this and this. But we take those ideas and we give them alternates of different budget variations, low, medium, and high. And also, we give them other ideas that are very similar. If any of those could work, great. If it doesn't, then they have additional options to choose from. A lot of times, for us, we're not naysayers. We say that's a great idea. However, there are things to consider. So we bring in factors of considerations for anything that is thrown out there in the planning process. It could be, cost, it could be logistical execution possibilities, contingency plans. It could also be, an alignment of style, perhaps, right? And so we always take a step back and figure out what the vision is, what the end goals are, and mainly the priorities. Here's an example. We're doing a sales kickoff, and the usually a sales kickoff is when people get together and align their vision and objectives of the company, and they evangelize the product and train their salespeople to incentivize their salespeople to sell. And so, some ideas that are thrown out is like, well, let's do a facilitated session to get people activated and like hands on the product. And then someone threw out, well, let's do a virtual game room. And we're all like, well, why? That's just so weird. Like, yeah, you can totally do a virtual game room for fun. And, that could fill the off time for people to enjoy themselves and to network. But here's the kicker: a virtual game room with multiple, gaming consoles and options can cost 10 grand. That adds to the budget. And at the very end of the conference, our agency, has to justify the spend to the executive. So we then take a step back and say, you know what, that's a great idea. Let's figure out a way to tell the story of why a virtual game room is going to be beneficial to your sales kickoff. And that story is, in the selling process, it can be very stressful. It can be demotivating. It could be, moments of like disappointment and you don't know where to go. When you're in that moment, you want, space to kind of take a step back. And most of the salespeople are very competitive, right? And so the story of having a virtual game room is allowing them that space to be competitive in other ways that they can win, to serve as an encouragement, a mental break, a mental distraction in other areas, and redirect that energy in a way that they can feel like they have control over a situation and win and compete with each other. And then afterwards be like, oh, that was a great break. Using that same energy, that same positive vibe, and then reapplying it to the actual selling process with their prospects. And so we were able to pitch that idea. We were able to get the money for it. It's because we aligned that random idea to the key message of the conference. I hope that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. It reminds me, I follow you on social media, and, I'm just recalling some of the posts in your feed, where there is an obviousness, at least from a event professional like me, where there's storytelling and content creation, very, very manifested in the events that you've created and produced. How do you, with the storytelling, the content creation, you just gave one example of it. How important are keynote speakers in that formula?
Oh my gosh. So, keynote speakers, I think content is everything, right? Like having the, speakers who really can articulate the overall message, but, from a macro to the micro, right? And so
Right.
when we are helping our clients build out the agenda, there's a new wave now of content format that it used to be, pre-pandemic, it used to be a lot of one to many sessions, right? A speaker on stage connecting with the audience, and there's like this higher level of like, person looking down. Now the conferences that I'm planning and that I'm attending, then there's a new wave of experiential content that is being launched. And this experiential content is basically, creating a session and content in a way where the audience actually feel with their five senses, touch, smell, they actually, there's some tasting sessions as well, right? And really activating and evoking action. So that new experiential content could be, and you can check out my LinkedIn post about it. It could be, facilitated sessions. It could be gamified session, game show, fishbowl. Like this the other day, we had this keynote speaker at one of my clients' conference for an HR tech, and he delivered his keynote in 10 minutes, 15 minutes with like 5 bullet points, and it was like very interactive. And then he shook it up towards the 15 to 30 minutes that he had left. He created what's called a fishbowl. And so in the middle of the talk, he gathered people from the audience, they volunteered to sit in the center of the room in a circle. And then he sat with them and facilitated conversations, surrounding very hot, controversial topics, specifically about HR because it was an HR conference. And the room just like everybody just looked up, they participated. And in the fishbowl is basically, let's say you have five attendees who volunteered and you have one empty chair. And it's basically fishes jumping in and out of that conversation. Some
Yeah.
fishes can choose to stay, some jump out. And so that keynote was really just very enticing and evoking of thought where, wow, like and then, he invited people to join us, and then it made me, I want to join, right? I want to join the conversation. But keynote nowadays, it has to be thought provoking. It has to be engaging and activating, most importantly, at the very end. Sure, you have keynote speakers who are very animated and charismatic. But I think for me, like what I'm seeing nowadays, it's keynote speakers who can really evoke action, and a call to action at the very end is the most powerful ones. And I've seen it. I saw it yesterday and I walked away like I'm never going to forget how that speaker made me feel and how he got me to really like want to participate or engage at that one session.
That's great. I'm seeing similar transformations on demands or requests from clients as to how a speaker engages the audience, not just from the stage, whether it's prior to, via video, any type of survey, or doing a short 10-minute live on LinkedIn or Instagram a month out before an event where the engagement and you begin to plant a seed about some of the core concepts of a keynote. So the audience already has a relationship with them when they get there, the attendees. And then when they get there, I'm seeing the trend of presentations being shortened and then some extra time instead of a traditional Q&A, where whether you've done a little preparation for, I wouldn't call them planted volunteers, but people that have volunteered up front, where you can continue that through line of the messaging and the initiatives. And then, of course, post, where a follow up in a newsletter, a follow up email, or a
Yes.
follow up Instagram post or a TikTok video that keeps that alive over time. And it's not
Yeah.
just this static conversation, like you said,
Yeah.
talking from above down below.
Right. And there's also too a new format. Well, I don't know if it's new to you, but I'm seeing something called a mini keynote
Hmm.
where it's like literally lightning rounds of 10 to 15 minutes.
Hmm.
And then at the very end, they allow the audience to also share like more than Q&A, but also share their input and contribution to that specific topic.
Yeah.
And there's a debate that goes on between the speaker and the audience.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting to allow the audience to contribute content in that way.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that. I think in the preparation for an event like that, Hong, or for the actual portion of that event is the mechanism where there's the unknown wild card of an attendee, and the fuel of their enthusiasm overtakes what can be a great debate into a monologue
Yeah, I
or
know.
a
Yeah.
question that isn't necessarily even a question. So
Yeah.
if we empower, provide the keynote who is facile in these type of things, the keynote speaker, to be able to not quash it, but gently kind of in a neuro-linguistic way
Redirect.
redirect, abate
Yeah.
it, mitigate it, so that the richness that's been built up doesn't get hijacked.
Oh,
Um,
totally. I think it requires a very aggressive, but like
yeah,
a firm approach to be able to guide the conversation and
yeah,
not let it get derailed. I mean,
eh,
those are the risks, right?
yeah,
There's controlled manner where, only one person has the mic, but I think these risks are worth taking to
totally.
enrich the content overall,
Yeah.
for sure. And I think it requires training, like speaker training.
Right.
Um,
And
yeah.
I think part of it is in the instructions and the opening of it, how it's framed. So
Yeah.
you literally tell them, I mean, it could sound like, a heavy mandate, but you literally tell them, look, we're opening up the mics.
Mhm.
You don't have to just call out for a mic or stand up. There's no order, but
Yeah.
here are kind of a little bit of, and you can use the word ground rules or kind of what the framework is so that you're already establishing some norms around that.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
let me ask you this. Are you seeing this with the clients you work with in North America, or are these changes reflective of the global locations and cultures that you
Mm.
work with all over the place?
I'm thinking it's more global. Like, I
Hmm.
don't think our clients are, centric to a specific location. I think the idea is there mainly because as a society, we all went through a major crisis, right? Like of the pandemic and the whole world shut down. And so now what we're really seeing, and I've seen this firsthand, people are hungry to connect. People want to talk to each other. Yeah, there are folks that are introverted and they're a little bit shy, but when prompted and given the right opportunity, they will not miss out on that connection, right? And so I've seen some of conferences, even my own clients, considering what's called networking ambassadors, where they hire a specific set of like on-site staff, and that their role is to connect people. Let's
Mm,
say we're at a conference for 1,000 people, right? And I'm one of those networking ambassadors being hired to be there. I'll wear a branded t-shirt. I'll talk to people. I'll walk up to people and say, "Hey, what's your name? What are you here for? What are you looking to get out of this conference?" And they'll tell me, or I'm looking to do A, B, C, D. And I'll be like, "Oh, you know what? I just met a really great person.
right.
Here's someone you should talk to. Come with me. Like walk with me to this session." And I'll introduce that person A to person B, and they are prompted to connect. They have, they're forced to connect because I connected them. And it's a more enriched conversation. It's a more enriched way to really get to know each other. And, as an attendee, they would be connected to the person that they actually want to connect to. And so, even learning through that experience, like, and seeing it firsthand, I know that people want to engage. They want to share their voice. And so globally, I do see, this new trend of experiential content being implemented across the world.
That's like having a butler on site that,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
a great word for it. Oh
yeah,
my
or
god.
or a Sherpa or a guide or
I
a,
love that
safari
word.
guide or something like
Yes.
that. And the more that that butler or that mayordomo knows about you, maybe on an app or they can scan you and look up your profile and they're assigned to a certain sector. And the more that they know what your goals or kind of what your wheelhouse is,
Yeah,
it facilitates it even more and
it really
empowers
does.
that Sherpa, that Everest summit guide to get you, connected up. And I think, it
Yeah.
speaks to collaboration,
Yeah.
utilizing, resources to
Yeah.
accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish. I want to shift gears a little bit. You know, one of the things that I personally love about conferences, events, and, all aspects of the meeting industry is that in my activity with my clients booking keynote speakers, I get to touch on every possible industry under the sun, whether it's healthcare, energy, technology, education, manufacturing, construction, real estate, and then every iteration of that from above and below. And so
Mhm.
not only on a personal level, being a lifelong learner, am I learning about all these things, but I'm also getting a sense of what's important with what they're grappling with at the moment. And there's always a thing about responding versus reacting,
Yeah.
right? Ooh, everybody is about DE&I or sustainability
Yeah.
or HR and how to deal with this generation, millennials or Zs
Mm.
or Xers or whatever. And what are I'd love to get a sense of what are some of the movements or
Yeah.
what's trending in our industry that you think have the most positive impact on our attendees and our
Yeah.
clients.
Oh my gosh. I mean, the obvious answer for me, at least, is AI.
Right.
Like, you know, in addition to, I mean, there's also mental health movements. Like, I'm seeing two trends: mental health movements and AI. I'll speak mainly on AI, is that,
Okay.
AI really changed my entire event planning process almost instantly because I build programs all the time, right? And there's also data analysis I have to do, so it changed my life in the event planning process in two ways: the back end side of actually executing the conference, and also the front end side where it impacts the attendees. So on the back end side, well, there's four ways, right, that it changed my life. So note taking AI is like amazing. Like, I'll dive deeper into that in a minute. Then content creation, data analysis, and media generation. So with note taking, obviously as an agency, we're meeting with clients all day, every day of the week with multiple clients. And it used to be that we had an event coordinator that would attend all these meetings and she would take notes. And at the end of the call, she would review the notes and do a summary recap of the meeting, highlighting action items, decisions that were made, discussions, and questions, right? And follow up, things like that. And so, in addition to that 1 hour meeting, it would take her 2 to 3 hours post meeting to do the recap. And sometimes we would have to do a review to make sure if anything was like missed. But with note taking AI now, like the AI attend our calls and it would just transcribe everything we talked about. There's really no need to like put finger to a keyboard and like take notes anymore. And then it also records, right? And so at the end of, Fireflies and like Sybil and all the other note taking technology, it can summarize
That's
the
right.
meeting for you. It could also, if you say, hey, this is an action item, the AI would know to create a list of action items. And so reducing from 3 hours of reviewing the notes down to like an hour, that saves a lot of time, you know? Content creation. I mean, I have to ideate content sessions and like themes, and, different attendee activities all the time. And sometimes we have writer's block. Like, inspiration and ideas doesn't come in a snap of a finger, right? It comes
No.
when you're brushing your teeth or you're in the shower at 3 a.m. in the morning, right? But with AI, it really helps like get you past that block to give you those initial ideas. And even though they're not perfect and they're not what you're really looking for, it gets you wheels spinning. And then media generation, oh my God, that is amazing, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can say to my client, I'm thinking of a VIP hospitality suite with these furnitures. But back in the days, like what, a couple weeks ago or a month ago, I would have to pull images from
That's
Google.
right. And
You know what I mean? Like, I would
compile
have,
and
yeah.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
like with Mid Journey now, I type in what I'm looking for. I can make some tweaks. I can do alterations and revisions, and I kind of get what I'm looking for,
Yeah.
exactly what I'm looking for. The downside, though, I would have to caution event planners who are listening to this is that, it's not perfect. There's still a human element to it. Like with media generation, you have to be really careful that what you're presenting to the client that is generated by AI is executionable, that is feasible. And you have to also think about the cost. right? So sometimes some of these things that are popping up in the AI generated images may not be possible to do, or it might, be astronomically expensive. So that's something you have to be careful of. And then even with content creation, it's not your voice. You still have to implement your voice into the content. And so those are the downsides. But and for the front end, I'm seeing a lot of AI powered networking. Here's one example. Obviously, I go to conferences all the time, and let's say I'm at a conference for like 500 people. I've had this experience firsthand where I download the mobile app and the names of the attendees are in alphabetical order. If
Right.
I want to connect with somebody, I have to go through the list of 500 names, read their profile, read their LinkedIn, and then mark if I want to meet with them. Like that, I don't have time for that. Who has time
No.
for that? So with AI powered networking, I can put in my interest, keywords that I'm looking for, and it'll give me like 10 to 20 top people that I should network with. Like that's a game changer,
Yeah,
Seth.
that's like having a treasure map.
Yeah, game
I
changer.
yeah.
So I think those are the ways, I mean, in terms of the new movement that I'm seeing nowadays.
At the Keynote Curators, we use it in a couple of different areas in our content creation. Many
Mhm.
similar ways that you do, sparking ideas when inspiration is a little bit sideways or kind of treading water.
Yeah.
But what I can wholeheartedly concur with you on is that it's a tool in the end, and that
Mhm.
human element, it's only going to do ultimately what you tell it to do.
Yeah.
And while it might be able to generate and do some artificial thinking, it's driven by the human, and it's another tool in the toolbox.
Absolutely. It's not a
Yeah.
replacement. I
No.
wouldn't fully rely on it. No
Yeah.
way. I think that's a big pitfall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it is, and I think we're still in the very very early days. I'm having
Agreed.
clients interested in keynote speakers on the basics of artificial intelligence, all the
Mm,
way through to a very micro dialed in detailed
mm,
application and everything in between, because everybody's at a different place of understanding not only what it is, how to execute it, what are the pitfalls, what to look out for. And I think we're in the very, very early days. It reminds me of when we were back in the late 90s with e-commerce,
mm.
and everybody and their neighbor wanted to know about how to do commerce on a website and how to do merchant transactions and
Yeah.
everything. And it was a very green,
Wow.
new
Something
area.
fresh, right?
Yes, and
Yeah.
everybody and their brother speaks on it, but I think,
Yeah.
I think we have a long road ahead of us as far as like really understanding the full capacity. It is a game
Absolutely.
changer, and I don't think it's an understatement. And I also think it's not an understatement that while we know in our core DNA it's a game changer, we
Yeah.
don't have a full understanding of how much it's
Right.
changing the game still.
Oh, it's yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
if you're really into the and trying out the AI, products, you'll eventually start to see that other people are doing it because you can tell when someone
that's
copy
right.
and paste, right,
That's
the
right.
content. It's so obvious if you know it and if you've already seen it. And so what I try to do is like, yeah, I use AI to create content, but I use it as an idea generator to create it, but I have to put in my voice in it, right? I change
Yeah.
certain things around to
Yeah.
make it sound like me.
Yeah. What I found is, at least my process, and I'm sure there's YouTube tutorials or whatever. I do a prompt. It's typically not the strongest prompt. And then I do the next derivative of it, and then the next derivative of it. And that in itself, learning to do the prompt is a creative act. And then you become more facile. It's like, how do you use the chisel? You get
Oh,
better and
that's so
better.
true. What a great analogy. Yeah,
Yeah.
the prompt is basically
The
like that. Yeah.
I mean, if you look up best prompts or using prompts, there's now like encyclopedias of prompts,
Yeah.
and that you can get
That's so
bogged down in
true.
that. I'm just cutting my teeth. I know that, I might look like it, but I didn't just graduate high school. But, if you wanted to get a start on an essay on the French Revolution or something,
Yeah.
high school essay on the French Revolution, I'm exaggerating, but, it could go any which direction. You have to know your scope and know where you want to put the weight of your inquiry and your
Absolutely.
prompt on.
Oh,
That's
that's
pretty,
so true. You're
yeah.
totally right. Yeah, I think it's basically like a chef,
Yeah,
right? You have to give that chef your specific ingredients.
that's right.
to be, to deliver you a meal that's good, that you're gonna really enjoy, that's customized and tailored to you. It's just like that.
Well, now you're getting me hungry, okay? And there's nothing artificial about me when I get hungry. It's authentic human being.
Right? Oh my gosh. After
Yeah,
this, you better have a really good meal for me.
that's right. All right. I want to talk about one more subject that I think we both can relate to working in the industry. It's related to mental health, and that is burnout. You
Oh
know,
my gosh. Yes.
keeping your team engaged and
Yeah.
excited and inspired and touched and moved and driven and connected and maintaining that sense of team. It's so common to get burnt out in the event industry, to have these roller coaster rides of emotion and energy, where meeting professionals are pulled in every different direction, and burnout is something real. It's a challenge to stay engaged. It's a challenge to stay excited, not just at the event itself, pre and post event, where things still need to be accomplished. Just because the event is done doesn't mean your work is done. And self-care practices are important to prevent this burnout, to keep your mental health intact, and to have resources for your team. And this is something meeting professionals, event planners, conference planners really need to keep their eye on. And I encourage us, as an important piece of this industry, to take care of your team and make sure that you have an eyeball on the burnout and their mental health. And what I want to know, Hong, is how do you approach it from Shiloh Events
Yeah.
and your 15 plus years in the industry?
Yeah. I mean, I want to go back to the word Shiloh, which means peace. And so, in order to really survive, thrive in the event planning industry, I always say this to my people: do you have a passion for events? Because events industry is no doubt going to take a toll on you. And if you do not have the passion to fuel you in your everyday job and tasks, do not be in this industry.
Yeah.
You're going to hurt yourself, because the industry is not going to change. The event industry is always going to be a beast in terms of the fast pace, the moving targets, constantly changing. Like, change is the only thing that you can guarantee on in events. And you only have one chance to do it, because you're dealing with time. The events is one time in place. Once it's done, it's done. You can't go back to it. So oftentimes, a lot of our clients have this perfection mentality where things have to be perfect. And yeah, there's no way you can make it perfect, but you can try and do it as best as you can. But in order to do that, you have to have passion for creating magic. You have to have passion for all the moving targets and for the production. And so I start with that, number one. Anytime I hire anyone, like, the very first question I ask is, do you have passion for the events industry? Secondly, in order to keep my team engaged and excited, we pursue programs that are innovative, that have the same mindset that we do, and that is collaboration and trust, but also elevation. We want to work with clients who want to elevate their program. If we have a client that is like cookie cutter, copy and paste, sure, we'll work with them. But and those are like the easy ones, right? Those are like not the stressful ones. But at the same time, if you have passion for events, you're going to get bored with those programs. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like a catch 22, and so we try to, have a balance between the programs that are cookie cutter, repeat, rinse and repeat, and then also the ones that are like engaging and exciting, where you get to really ideate and innovate like new concepts to elevate the program. And so if in that moment our team responds with anxiety, we try to do a solutions call where we talk through what is bothering you today. What are you most nervous about? And we like face that conflict head on. And oftentimes we'll share frustrations that we have with each other, frustrations about our client, about our vendors. We, spend moments to gripe together as a team, and then we come up with solutions. And so those solution calls honestly are a huge like exhaling moment of like, I got that off my chest.
Right.
Like, I can really, like, I can tell that person, hey, like, you not answering my day, or you being snappy, really bothered me, and I couldn't focus on getting the tasks done. And now being able to talk to you about it, and then making everybody aware of, that situation is extremely helpful. And so having this culture where you can be comfortable to share those frustration is really important in that in the events industry. Setting realistic expectations of saying, we talk about this all the time in the events industry, right? The work-life balance. Is it real? Probably not. But what can you really do about it? Like, is you set expectations. I encourage people all the time. I say, this is not a 9 to 5 job. You don't check in at 9 and then boom, you're done at 5 and not expect people to contact you a week before the program, right? And so what I encourage people to do is set expectations where, hey, in a week, my kids are going to be off of school because public school system or whatever, the holidays, right? Sometimes preschool closes for a week for no reason. And so I say, I am not going to be able to answer quickly because my kids are at home and I don't have childcare because it's expensive. So the expectation I'm setting you right now is that I'm going to do as best as I can to front load the work this week. But I'm going to be limited availability next week. So I'm going to hand off some of my work to my counterpart. And if you have any questions, go to that person. Delegating tasks is another one, right? Of like saying, and a lot of time event planners are type A people. They're control freaks. They don't like to
Yeah.
hand off
Yeah.
things. And so I
Yeah.
try to encourage people like, if you can hand off as much as possible, like data entry. You don't need to be doing data entry. Have an event
No.
coordinator do that, right? Like
Yeah.
rooming lists. So take breaks, go on walks. And so those are like, for an example, we all work from home, at least with our agency. Honestly, we don't need to go into the office. This return to work concept is great for some of the tech companies and like maybe science industries and construction. But in the events industry or the agency side, I don't really feel a need to call people back to the office. During the day, people do laundry, people do the dishes, like they
Right.
drop off their kids, they go get their nails done, whatever. Do whatever you want to take care of yourself during the day. But if you're taking an hour or 2 hours out of the day for self care, make it up in other ways. You know,
That's right. Yeah.
log on at night. If you can log on during the weekend, get up early. It's up to you. And so putting that autonomy back on them, on the planners, and giving them that agency to manage their own time and set realistic expectations and delegate has been extremely effective in managing stress and anxiety for us.
Yeah. Coming from a mindset of self care, communication, which is a through line I heard through all of that, and knowing yourself and knowing how to communicate what you need when you need it, whether it's
Yes.
delegating or a little bit more bandwidth on when you can produce your outputs and provide them. And I think that there's a shift in that thinking. And I just know that when I talk to meeting professionals, which is every single day, I have been in doing this almost 20 years, 19 years. And, I know my clients and my buyers, and I have the space to intervene and say, hold on, you don't need to get that to me by the end of the day. The event is in, 14 months from now. Let's set a realistic timetable here. Don't overexert and unnecessary stress. So
Right.
I
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
it's a relationship there.
Yeah. I
Hung,
think you brought up a good point too, because we have an event coordinator who hustles and she works her ass off and she's so hungry, right? Like these new up and coming professionals. And as their leader, we have to also be cognizant to not take advantage of that, and protect them
yeah,
because
well
they're young.
said.
They don't know, right? They don't
Yeah,
know yet
yeah,
what's coming down, what's coming up ahead. And so,
right.
for us as great leaders, we try to protect those younger hearts
Yeah.
to prevent them from burning out too.
And whether they heed it wholeheartedly or all of
Yeah.
what you're saying is one thing, but if you're making them aware and presencing it, it gets in there.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you have to intervene a little bit more firm and harder than one might want to. But in the end, it's for the long term of the team and the health and energy of what you're
Oh my
producing.
gosh. Yes.
Yeah,
Energy is everything.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, I think that dictates your day, right? If you have
yeah,
energy, you can be negative or positive. And the negative, oh God, like I don't want
yeah.
negativity energy.
That's another podcast.
Yes.
Hong, we've come almost to the close of our conversation. This has just been so rich and so fantastic. The last piece of what I do with our honored guests that we're so privileged to have is our 20 questions. It's a little bit of a rapid fire.
I'm
There's
ready.
no
Let's do
there's
it.
no right or wrong answer, so let's go. What's the most What's the most interesting thing about you that we wouldn't know from reading your resume?
Bouldering. I love to boulder and ice skate, and so I figure skate as well on my off time.
Fantastic. What's the last book you read?
Oh my gosh. What is, The Art of Not Giving a Fuck?
Ah, I know that one. I know that one.
Amazing book. Oh
Yeah.
my god. For event
So
planners, you should read that because you can learn how to not give a fuck about some of the smaller things.
social media, friend or foe?
Friend, absolutely. If you use it right. I mean, you don't,
Yeah.
you gotta really curate content that elevates your mindset.
Yeah, for sure. What are the must-haves for you, Hong, when you're traveling?
Oh my goodness. Chargers.
Charters. That's a good one. Yeah, believe me,
Yeah.
I was just in Hong Kong, and
Yeah.
boy, you need to be prepared.
You need to be, and then my pillow. I bring my pillow and my fleece blanket with me everywhere I go. It's bulky, but it's worth it because I can actually get a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Not all
Yeah.
beds are created equal, neither are pillows, and pillows in hotels are terrible.
What's the next place on your travel bucket list?
Travel bucket list?
Yeah.
Probably Vietnam. I wanna go back to my home country. Yeah,
Sounds like an amazing, amazing place to visit. What's
can't
your
wait.
wildest event experience that you would dream about doing if budget was no object?
Holy cow. I would love to do Dreamforce someday,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
where it's citywide, it touches many facets of the city and economics and, bringing business, improving the surrounding area, but also impacting the attendees. Like everybody like wants to go to Dreamforce someday, right? So I want to create an event where it's, very similar of that caliber.
Yeah, that's a beautiful event. I track it all the time. What are you streaming or watching right now on streaming?
The Last Kingdom,
I
it
love that
is a
one.
Oh,
Yeah.
you seen it?
Oh, loved it.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so good. Oh
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
god, Seth, like, I'm
Yeah.
hooked. I'm already done, but I wanna go
Yeah.
back and do it again. But
You
it's
don't want
so
it to end.
I don't want to, and the storyline, I didn't think I would like it, but the storyline really got me, right? How United Kingdom was formed by
Yeah.
a vision of
Right.
one man of
And it
uniting
comes down to
eh
relationships.
yeah, comes down to, but also, like, reliance on people sometimes you don't trust,
Yeah.
right? And
Risk,
so
taking risk.
yeah, I think it
Yeah.
has a lot to do with, like, that you need to get it to an end goal, but if you only have 1 or 2 people that can help you meet that goal, but you don't trust them, you gotta rely on that.
Yeah. Well, that's the Last Kingdom is a good finish point there.
Yeah.
I could go on and on. I think we've left a couple of ideas and thoughts and topics on the table so we can revisit. I always keep an open-ended invitation because as our industry is so transformative and always changing, as you said yourself eloquently, the only thing you can expect for sure, guarantee 100% is change in our
Mhm.
industry. We can come back and revisit and see where Shiloh Events has taken you and where Keynote Curators has provided speakers for our industry and all sorts of events all over the world. But
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for your time, for your energy, for your good-heartedness and generosity of spirit, not just on this podcast, but with you and Julius, who connected us, and all the people you work with and the difference that you make out there in the world. So just thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and also allowing me to share insights that I'm hoping could be really helpful and life-changing to the listeners.
Thanks for spending time with us today. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to our content. We'll keep bringing you the latest industry news and insights. Don't forget to follow us on social media so you never miss an update. And if you're looking for a keynote speaker for your next event, reach out to us directly or visit our website at thekeynotecurators.com.